हमारे देश का जो जीडीपी है ना, यानी पूरे हमारे देश का जो समझ लीजिएगा वेल्थ है, इनकम है, किसी भी लैंग्वेज में आप समझे, बट इन आवर नेशनल जीडीपी द MSMEs, the small companies, medium companies, micro companies contribute 1/3 of it.
I mean, how do you see, when you look back, what has this, taking that plunge at that time, what has it given you?
Ability to deal with fear. पूरा जो भी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होता है उसका 1/3 से ज्यादा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग MSMEs करती है, यानी छोटी कंपनियां करती है। आधे से ज्यादा लोग छोटे गांव से आए हुए हैं। डर तो हर किसी को लगता है किसी ना किसी चीज का। अब ये छोटी कंपनियां कौन सी है? अंटिल दिस बजट 250 करोड़ के नीचे, अब वो 500 करोड़ तक उसका लिमिट जा रहा है।
250 करोड़ के नीचे छोटी कंपनियां हैं,
तो देश के सबसे ज्यादा जॉब इन कंपनी में है। अब हम कंपनी बहुत बात करते हैं ना, बट हमें ये पता है क्या कि 95% से ज्यादा कंपनियां ये MSME होती है। नाउ दैट इंडिया इज वन ऑफ द टॉप 5 ग्लोबल इकोनॉमीज,
yes,
अब 20-30 साल में इन लोगों ने जीरो से शुरुआत की और आज 100 करोड़ 150 करोड़ का बिजनेस उनका खुद का है। With the fact that they are dealing with one of the top 5 in the world.
That is amazing.
जो पैसा चाहिए होता है आपको आज बहुत इजीली अवेलेबल है एज कम्पेयर टू पहले। आज कई सारी गवर्नमेंट की स्कीम है जो आपको हेल्प कर रही है। एक आध स्टार्टअप करना सिर्फ IT में नहीं, किसी और क्षेत्र में भी।
लेकिन ये सब चीजें जो आप बता रहे हैं अबाउट लोन्स एंड अबाउट सपोर्ट फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स, किसी को पता नहीं है, हम नॉर्मल लोगों को पता ही नहीं, और स्टूडेंट्स को तो बहुत दूर की बात है। Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of The Spirit of Enterprise, where we talk about entrepreneurial mindset. With me today, I have a dear friend, a very special guest, Prashant Girbane, who is the Director General of Mahratta Chambers of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture. And he also sits on the board of Symbiosis International University. He is also responsible for the growth and development of the auto cluster and the electronics cluster in Pune. He also is a trustee and the General Secretary of PIC, Pune International Center, which is Pune's own think tank and policy institute. Prashant is also a 1-year senior of mine from IIM Ahmedabad. He's also a chemical engineer from UDCT Bombay. So a lot of wonderful tags that he has with him. But what is most important for me is that I've seen with Prashant that he has this beautiful attitude of lifelong learning. He always carries this humility. He's always seeking to make a difference in other people's lives. He always seeks service and purpose. And we're going to talk about this, Prashant, as we go. Let me tell you that out of Ahmedabad, while others were seeking these crazy placement opportunities with, hotshot companies, and I know you've also worked in your fair share of hotshot companies, but while people had this rush for placements, Prashant, you did not do that. And I remember that was the time when we had the earthquake in Gujarat, and you chose to go and volunteer in Kutch. What were you thinking?
Okay. So look, fortunately, right, in the campus, got the summers with Procter & Gamble, jobs in a marketing company. So that was sorted. But then earthquake happened on 26 January 2001, right? And then it unfortunately reminded me of my Latur days, because when I was studying in Latur in 12th, there was Latur earthquake. And my house had got cracks and I had seen the devastation. And I had felt that, I should be doing something to help. But I was too young. I went to the hospital to give blood. They wouldn't take. I was too young. I think it was somewhere kind of, it was back of my mind. And many 8, 9, 10 years later when this happened, then I thought I got to be doing something. So we went to Bhuj. Few professors from IMA. And I just tagged along. And we went there and the professor said, we would come back to you with some help. I said, no, I'm not coming back to the campus now. I'll stay here.
Wow.
And I stayed. And it so happens that when I stayed there, I came back after a month or so because I had to do some process in the campus so that I get the degree eventually, because it was the last term. Then I told classmates, to cut that long story short, I also made some phone calls to different institutes. We had about 25 of friends from different colleges joining me.
Wow.
And they stayed for a varied period of time. So yeah. And you know what, interestingly, 2 of them at least thank me for their marriage because two of them found their life partners in the story.
That's the benefits of volunteering. But how long did you spend there?
So I spent about a year in Bhuj and another year in Delhi in United Nations office.
And what exactly did you do in Bhuj? What were you doing? Tell us what a day looked like. What kind of activities did you do?
So when we went there, right, there was this possibly 15 by 15 room where the Additional Chief Secretary of Government of Gujarat, which is the second senior most position in the entire government, sitting there. He was responsible for managing everything. Now Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, had just taken over as the Chief Minister of Gujarat then. And this gentleman would have responsibility for everything. He had to prepare lots of reports. Having done management school, we were good at doing the spreadsheet and PPTs, right? So we thought there's lots of data coming. Said like, don't worry, I'll punch it in, I'll get you the reports. He liked that, he loved it. Because the usual bureaucrats, right, did not necessarily have that ability. They had some other abilities, nice abilities. So that helped him. Beyond that, when I got all of my classmates and friends coming and they each did some wonderful work. For example, we could look at how many tin sheets are required for people who do not have a roof.
My God.
So this classmate of mine, Rishi Sanwal, he went around different places. He used all the analytics, but more importantly, on-ground research also. And we calculated.
He actually went around.
He went around.
Surveyed the area.
Absolutely. Then we had to figure out the entire supply chain, right? Where the stuff comes from, where does it go? So Rishi Sanwal in our team ensured that thousands of families had roof, the tin roof, those who did not have any roof because of the earthquake. And that happened within few weeks. So that's the kind of work that we're involved in. But interestingly, we stayed in a tent. While on occasions we went in helicopter, we had a pilot coming to us and telling, sir, where can I take you for the surveys? But we stayed in a tent and we would be in the queue and the Swaminarayan temple used to run these langars, right? And we would eat there. But that was fun life.
What an experience.
But that was fun.
What an experience. But you know, to me, this is really entrepreneurial mindset. You know, you see something that connects with you. And while I know what kind of a craze we have at that time in IIM Ahmedabad or any of these institutes, you know, placements, who's going to get the best salary, who's going to, you know, be that consultant. But to say, okay to all that, I'll come back to you and grab something that calls you like this, it takes courage, and that's entrepreneurial mindset. And I know subsequently from that, Prashant, you have been a consultant in TCS, you have been with the UN, you have started your own business today. You know, you are in this influential role where you're, you know, leading industry, the Chamber of Commerce. Tell me, what has this experience done to you? I mean, how do you see, when you look back, what has this, taking that plunge at that time, what has it given you?
Yeah, so I'll answer that, but just one more line before that. When I took that decision, right, I'm just thinking about what was going in the mind. It was pretty simple, right? If I have done all this work and studies, if I can't afford to do it, who would? And why would I not? Now coming to your question on what was the learning, right? There's something very interesting. Now I can reflect on it. At that stage, possibly I didn't understand. An ability to deal with fear. Ability to deal with fear, because here I was, my dad was a retired school teacher who had sold his house so that he could pay my fees at IMA. And here I was, rather than doing the job and rebuilding the house, I had decided to do volunteering.
Wow.
And while doing volunteering, I met a major accident and I was in coma for a few days, and my parent had to spend on me at a time when I was doing a job.
My God.
Now, to cut the long story short, if I could go through all of that and come where I am, it teaches me an ability to deal with the fear of uncertainty. इसके बाद क्या होगा? 2 साल बाद क्या होगा? इसका fear अभी नहीं है. The second thing is ability to deal with failures. कई सारे धक्के लग गए हैं. Because when you're trying to get this whole tin sheets moving, right? multiple things wouldn't work, and it was a question of thousands of families who would not have roof on their head.
Right.
When we can deal with that issue, that intense an issue and that intense a problem, right? Then you believe that you can deal with failures which look a lot smaller, the other failures that you deal with, which is, आज boss ने गुस्सा किया है, आज बंदे ने काम नहीं किया है, this colleague isn't necessarily, collaborating with me. All of those issues look a lot smaller because of that. So ability to deal with fear, ability to deal with failure. The third one is collaboration, right? All of this is managerial jargon today, but at that point in time, we were going to Ahmedabad. From Ahmedabad to Bhuj. There were 5 of us in the tracks or car or whatever that vehicle that we had. And I got a call from this young girl, again, a classmate, kind of same batch, somewhere from Anand, Irma, and said, I would also want to come. And a couple of classmates said, the language I can't use on the podcast, but they use all possible languages. It's like, क्यों भाई? इतने लोग तो जा रहे हैं, उसको कहाँ रखेंगे? बोला, वो हमारा problem नहीं, if she would want to come and join. But I'm glad to tell you that she came, she worked. We collaborated a lot with each other. We did multiple things together. We learned to collaborate with government, which we did not have any experience of. We learned to collaborate with international agencies who came to help there.
Amazing.
We learned to collaborate with people who are affected by the earthquake, people who had lost lives in their family. Now, all of this you cannot necessarily learn in a classical classroom. You need to go through the experiences, whether there or anywhere else. That's what I would say we learned from there. Just to conclude this story, that girl who joined us got married to one of my classmates. Both of them are very happy.
Woohoo! Wow, too good. So you actually made somebody's marriage happen also.
And this friend of mine wrote a book, and he happily wrote in this, it is thanks to it that it happened. So all of this also are the good things that could happen if you try to do something nice that you'd want to do.
So nice, yaar. Just to kind of put this all together, I want to say and ask you, Prashant, that, nowadays we think of career and education as this very linear thing. College जाएंगे, फिर एक job मिलेगा, फिर हम masters करेंगे, वगैरह, वगैरह. Now, what you've done is an adventure, volunteering, and a lot of people talk about the benefits of volunteering. Just at a overall level, I mean, if you look back, and I know you have 2 young kids, your daughter's also ready to get out there into the world. What would you want to tell youngsters, just with regard to exploring, getting exposure and opening their minds?
I would say, go out there, try what you'd want to try. Theories are good, but practice is even more important. नीति अच्छी है, कृति उससे ज़्यादा जरूरी है.
कृति उससे ज़्यादा जरूरी है.
Absolutely. क्योंकि when you are involved in doing something, right, then you learn the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Wisdom is knowledge that also comes with sentiments attached. Sentiments get attached, or the emotions get attached when you've gone through the experience yourself. So I would say, go out there and try it out.
Amazing. Kriti ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. In enterprise, we call it #karo.
Okay. So yeah, same. Kriti karo. So नीति ना बहुत सारा ज्ञान अच्छा है, कुछ बुरा नहीं है. Knowledge is important, theory is important. I'm not demeaning it, but Kruti उससे ज़्यादा important है. Because we are in an era, right? Everything is at your fingertip.
Right.
The Gen Alpha is also be able to use the chat GPTs of the day or whatever the equivalent ones, right? So in the era when knowledge is available for everybody, the ones who can effectively use it, ones who can do the Kruti, would do a lot better.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Prashant, I know that you are very passionate about MSMEs, the micro, small and medium enterprises, which is really the bulk of Indian business. It contributes a huge proportion to the Indian economy. So working with, these are real entrepreneurs, like off raw, real, hands-on, roll up your sleeves kind of entrepreneurs. And I know that you are a part of a lot of policy initiatives and a lot of programs to support the MSME. Can you tell us, how do you see entrepreneurship really? How do you see the importance of entrepreneurship to a country, to a growing and ambitious country like India?
Sure. But possibly a minute of what MSMEs mean, and then I could respond to the question. So हमारे देश का जो जीडीपी है ना, यानी पूरे हमारे देश का जो समझ लीजिएगा वेल्थ है, इनकम है, किसी भी लैंग्वेज में आप समझे, बट इन आवर नेशनल जीडीपी द MSMEs, द स्मॉल कंपनीज, मीडियम कंपनीज, माइक्रो कंपनीज कंट्रीब्यूट 1/3 ऑफ इट। दूसरा आंकड़ा जरूरी है, पूरा जो भी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होता है उसका 1/3 से ज्यादा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग MSMEs करती है, यानी छोटी कंपनियां करती है। तीसरा आंकड़ा यह है, जितना भी हम एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं, निर्यात करते हैं, 45% यानी आधी लगभग निर्यात ये छोटी कंपनियां करती हैं।
क्या बात है।
ठीक है, अब ये छोटी कंपनियां कौन सी है? अंटिल दिस बजट 250 करोड़ के नीचे, अब वो 500 करोड़ तक उसका लिमिट जा रहा है।
250 करोड़ के नीचे छोटी कंपनियां हैं।
अब इस बजट के बाद, जो कि पिछले इस महीने हुआ, 500 करोड़ के नीचे छोटे कंपनियां हैं, यानी माइक्रो, स्मॉल एंड मीडियम।
दे आर कंपनीज बिलो 500
करोड़, राइट। अब ये कंपनियां इंटरेस्टिंग इसलिए हैं, जॉब्स जब आप देखेंगे तो इन कंपनियों में लगभग 10 से 15 करोड़ जॉब ये कंपनियां देती हैं। तो देश के सबसे ज्यादा जॉब इन कंपनी में होते हैं। अब हम कंपनी बहुत बात करते हैं ना, बट हमें ये पता है क्या कि 95% से ज्यादा कंपनियां ये MSME होती है।
95% से ज्यादा कंपनियां
MSME होती है। लगभग स्वाभाविक है, क्योंकि कोई भी चीज पिरामिड जैसी होती है। हमें क्या पता होता है, TCS बड़ी कंपनी है, हमें पता होता है कि एक और कोई बड़ी कंपनी आप ले लीजिएगा, HSBC है, फॉरेन कंपनी इंडिया में है, बजाज है, यहाँ पर सीरम है, ये सभी बड़ी कंपनियां हैं। तो बहुत अच्छी कंपनियां हैं, बहुत अच्छा है वहां पे काम करना, पर हर कोई वहां नहीं जाता। तो ये जो बॉटम अप पिरामिड है बहुत बड़ा है। अब सीख क्या मिली उससे, MSME से? मैंने पिछले साल आदित्य लगभग 52 MSMEs का इंटरव्यू किया, ऐसे ही पॉडकास्ट किया।
वाओ, 52 MSMEs का पॉडकास्ट किया आपने।
और ये MSMEs ऐसी थी जिनका आज तक किसने इंटरव्यू नहीं किया, और जिसका टर्नओवर उस वक्त पे 250 करोड़ से नीचे था। उसमें से कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें समझ में आई है एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के बारे में। वो ऐसे हैं कि 85% ऑफ देम वेर फर्स्ट जनरेशन एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, यानी लगभग 42 ऑफ देम वेर फर्स्ट जनरेशन एंटरप्रेन्योर्स। दूसरी बात, इसमें से लगभग 20-30 साल हो चुके थे लोगों को काम करते ऑन एन एवरेज, कुछ 5-6 साल वाले भी थे। अब 20-30 साल में इन लोगों ने जीरो से शुरुआत की, और आज 100 करोड़ 150 करोड़ का बिजनेस उनका खुद का है।
क्या बात है।
अब ये लोग कौन है? इनमें से कोई भी ऐसा नहीं था, हमारा कॉलेज बहुत अच्छा है जहां से हम पढ़े हुए हैं, पर कोई भी ऐसा नहीं था जो कि ऐसे कॉलेज से MBA किया,
कोई फैंसी कॉलेज से बहुत बड़ा डिग्री हो,
कोई भी नहीं था। लगभग कोई भी नहीं था, कम से कम 42 में से 35-37 तो ऐसे लोग बिल्कुल नहीं थे, नहीं है, क्योंकि ये सब कुछ यूट्यूब पर है। तो इनमें कोई नहीं था। तीसरी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज, इनका बैकग्राउंड अगर देखा जाए तो आधे से ज्यादा लोग छोटे गांव से आए हुए हैं, छोटे गांव से आए हुए हैं। उसके बाद अगर देखा जाए इन लोगों की लर्निंग्स, ये सब लोग आज, इनके पास बिटवीन 50 to 500 लोग काम करते हैं, इनके खुद के बंगलोज हैं, इनके खुद के पास लग्जरी व्हीकल्स हैं, इनके खुद के बच्चे जहां चाहे वो पढ़ते हैं। ये लोग हर साल कम से कम 1 या 2 वेकेशन जहां चाहे वहां लेते हैं दुनिया भर में। तो ऐसी कौन सी बात है ये नहीं कर पा रहे हैं? और ऑल ऑफ दिस वाइल फॉलोइंग देयर पैशन व्हाट दे वांट टू डू, ऑल ऑफ दिस वाइल कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू द नेशनल इकोनॉमी, क्योंकि उसके बिना तो नेशनल इकोनॉमी की चलेगी ही नहीं,
चल ही नहीं सकता।
क्योंकि जॉब क्रिएटर हैं आप, जॉब सीकर नहीं। जॉब सीकर एक जमाना था। पु. ल. देशपांडे मराठी में एक बड़े ऑथर रह चुके हैं, उन्होंने कहा हुआ था, एक मराठी में मैं बोलता हूं, फिर बाद में आई ट्रांसलेट इन इंग्लिश। नोकरी, जॉब असा असायचा की एखाद्या पाकिटाला स्टॅम्प चिकटल्यासारखा. Jobs used to be like a stamp stuck to an envelope in the early days. Now, people are being able to change job quite frequently. In that era, entrepreneurship is even more important. The last bit I'll mention is, entrepreneurship is even more important because capital, जो पैसा चाहिए होता है आपको, आज बहुत easily available है as compared to पहले. आज आप मुद्रा लोन से करोड़ों लोग लोन ले पा रहे हैं बिना किसी एसेट्स का, बिना कुछ चीज गिरवी रखे हुए आप लोन ले पा रहे हैं. आज फॉर्मल लोन आपको 10-12% पे बहुत सारा मिल पा रहा है. आज कई सारी गवर्नमेंट की स्कीम है जो आपको हेल्प कर रही है. अब ये सब जब हो रहा है तो कोई एक आध स्टार्टअप करना सिर्फ आईटी में नहीं, किसी और क्षेत्र में भी बहुत आसान है,
मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में भी या रिटेल में भी। लेकिन ये सब चीजें जो आप बता रहे हैं अबाउट लोन्स एंड अबाउट सपोर्ट फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स, किसी को पता नहीं है, हम नॉर्मल लोगों को पता ही नहीं, और स्टूडेंट्स को तो बहुत दूर की बात है।
तो MCCIA फॉर्चुनेटली एक कंपनी नहीं है, तो मुझे कुछ प्रमोट नहीं करना है, एसोसिएशन है ये। MCCIA का एक मोबाइल नंबर है, मैं सबको दे दूंगा, आप स्क्रीन पर भी देख पाएंगे इस पर आप फोन करिएगा और आपको जो हेल्प चाहिए वो फ्री मिलेगी। और हेल्प करने के लिए 25 लोगों का हमारे पास एक्सपर्ट का रोस्टर है, उन्हें हम पे करते हैं ताकि वो आपको फ्री में हेल्प कर पाए। आप महाराष्ट्र में कहीं से भी हो, सिर्फ हम आपके लिए प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर पाएंगे और आपका माल बेच नहीं पाएंगे। अदर देन दैट, एनी अदर हेल्प यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड GST, टू अंडरस्टैंड how to benefit from a scheme, to understand how to improve quality, you would get advice from one of these 25 experts within 48 hours of your request.
Amazing. So that is the MCCI helpline for MSMEs. Please call this number for any kind of support as a small, medium entrepreneur that you may need. Prashant, MCCIA is a chamber of commerce, and it is one of the most prominent chambers of commerce in India, I know. And I know that in the years that you've been a part of it, you have created a lot of initiatives just like this helpline. But can you tell us, chamber of commerce होता क्या है और आप करते क्या हो?
तो आपको अगर पता हो तो गणेश उत्सव होता है हमारे यहाँ पर। तो हम गणेश उत्सव कैसा करते हैं, कई सारे लोग आते हैं, पट्टी जमा करते हैं, पट्टी यानी वी ऑल कंट्रीब्यूट, और उससे हम लोग गणपति लेके आते हैं, हम उत्सव करते हैं, मनाते हैं। तो कुछ हद तक ऐसा समझिए आप कि एक इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन है, वेयर इंडस्ट्री पीपल कम टुगेदर कलेक्टिवली एंड से हमें साथ में कुछ करना है, तो वी कंट्रीब्यूट अ टाइनी बिट। सो पीपल पे, लाइक इफ यू आर अ स्टार्टअप, यू पे ओनली 1000 rupees फॉर द एंटायर ईयर, only 1000 rupees if you are a startup. If you are a woman entrepreneur, you pay only 1000 rupees. Some bigger companies would pay more fees. What do they get out of it? कई बार क्या होता है कि you would want to tell the government, हमें रिंग रोड चाहिए, हमें पुणे से सिंगापुर फ्लाइट चाहिए. Each one can't go and do it. So I remember last year, or no, 2 years ago, I went to meet Jyotiraditya Scindia ji. Honorable Minister gave time. We told we need Pune to Singapore flight. In 2 months' time, when he was here in Pune, in this building in MCCIA, he announced Pune Singapore flight. Within another month, which is in 3 months from the meeting, we had a Pune Singapore flight.
Wow.
So we have an ability collectively, because we have a collective energy to ask for things. Not that everything that we ask, we get it. Apologies. But we get bunch of things for sure. So one is advocacy on behalf of all the industry. Second, we would also, capability building is important. इस साल में अभी 11 साढ़े 11 महीने हुए हैं, 12 महीने हो जाएंगे मार्च एंड को. We have helped 10,000 MSMEs, 10,000 कंपनियां जिनका टर्नओवर 250 करोड़ से कम है, by giving them training in one area or another. क्योंकि हर छोटी मोटी कंपनी के पास ना HR डिपार्टमेंट नहीं होता, तो बट उन्हें तो कैपेबिलिटी बिल्डिंग चाहिए, नया कुछ सीखना है. ऐसे 10,000 कंपनीज में कई सारे थाउजेंड्स ऑफ पीपल को हमने ट्रेन किया है एक ना किसी चीज के ऊपर.
फैंटास्टिक.
तीसरी चीज ये होती है, हमें नेटवर्क करना होता है हर किसी को. एक साल में एक आध काउंसिल जनरल आते हैं किसी कंट्री के, तो हर कंपनी में जा नहीं सकते, तो यहाँ पे आते हैं और 60, 100, 120 लोग जो भी उन्हें मिलना चाहते हैं वो आके मिल सकते हैं. तो इन 1 year we introduce the companies to about 20-25 ambassadors or consul generals.
Wow.
About 20 odd ministers or secretary level senior most government officers, so that you can meet them, network them, you can talk to them, you can listen to them. तो ये चीजें इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन करती है on behalf of the industry.
Amazing. So 3 चीजें बताया आपने. One is advocacy, where as a collective of the industry, you go to the government with some requests and suggestions. Second is training. And the third thing you spoke about is networking, right? So this is what a chamber of commerce does. And Prashant leads the MCCI, which is a prominent chamber of commerce in Pune. But it's a prominent chamber of commerce in the country.
I should also add something, Aditya. This chamber of commerce, we have had the presidents like Shantanu Rao Kirloskar, like Rahul Bajaj. Wow. Currently, Shri Sanjay Kirloskar is the president. Every president has a 2-year term and they do wonderful work in terms of guiding. And I serve as the Director General, which is the head of the staff here to make sure that everything as the president and the board advice is executed and done.
Wow. So some really people who are captains of industry in Pune and in Maharashtra have been a part of the leadership of the MCCIA. That's amazing. So friends, that's what MCCIA is. It's a chamber of commerce, which is basically a collective of the regional industries that come together, form a body, contribute something together, and it does three things. One, it does advocacy with the government. So ideas or suggestions that the industry wants to go back to the government and tell, it helps with that. Two, it provides training to the local industry ecosystem. And three, it creates networking opportunities, right? That is a chamber of commerce. So Prashant, I remember 5-6 years back when you were new into this role as the DG of MCCIA and you wanted to youngify, right, the organization. And I think that time the average age was something like 55 plus or something like that. And I know you had this goal in your head that I want to bring some young blood. And I remember over some conversations, you started the MCCIA fellowship and every year started bringing some young people. So you worked with an organization that has traditionally been quite old as such, but you brought in these youngsters. What have been some of the learnings that you've had in dealing with youngsters, giving them challenges, giving them targets? What is it that you have learned in terms of working with young people?
Thank you, Aditya. MCCIA is an organization. That's a wonderful organization. It has a huge history, very hardworking people. But what it lacked was a dash of energy, enthusiasm, and fresh perspective.
Okay.
What it lacked was energy, enthusiasm, and fresh perspectives. How do I get it? So we did multiple things. A, we got our existing people with 20-25 years experience, almost unlimited budget for whatever they wanted to learn. And it produced some good results.
Wow.
But beyond that, we actually needed to have people who have fresh perspective. So I'm very thankful to you. That's the stage I talked with you because you used to work with a lot younger people even then. And I'm very thankful because that advice really helped. Not just advice. We didn't take just your niti. We also got you to do the kruti. We also got you to sit on the interview panels and help us.
And it was so much fun.
Yeah. That was the first batch, Aditya. That was the first batch we inducted young fellows. We called it a fellowship program because it needs to be something that's attractive to the younger people.
Absolutely.
Right? So we called it MCCIA Youth Fellowship. And I think half the name was given by you there. I remember these discussions. And we launched it. We got multiple applications. And then we had about 6-8 of them joining us as the first batch. It's wonderful on what they were able to do. One of them is now actually advising some large companies on sustainability.
Crazy.
The other one, these are the people with almost no experience or 1 year experience, by the way. The youth fellowship that we created. The power that these young people have. So one of them is now already advisor to multiple large companies, somebody who met the Secretary General of United Nations.
Wow.
The second one went to Germany to study further, worked with Mercedes and now working with Amazon. The third one went to farm and is now become a manufacturer of some kind of a edible oil, if I'm not wrong. The fourth one is an architect who thereafter went to study in IIM Ahmedabad to do postgraduate program and also is running his own firm. The
Amazing.
fifth one is here who is now conducting the fellowship program for subsequent batches.
Wow. So the whole circle has come all around.
Now it's the 6th year and every year they have done wonderfully well. One of them whom we hired last year has a team of 8 people reporting to him within 1 year experience. The second one, the last year's batch, has went around and helped 1,000 MSMEs to understand how to use AI.
This is crazy, and these are all youngsters who are like 25, 26, 27 at most.
Not even that. We are talking about 23, 24.
That's
most.
crazy because, like I agree with you. I mean, youth is full of potential, perspective, creativity, but also because of youth, the experience is not there and so many organizations are not able to tap into that energy. Prashant, what is the magic sauce? What is it that has helped you to unleash this potential and this power?
Hey, look, I mean, a couple of things. I think first of all, very open mind, right? When we hired these people, we had broad idea of what we want them to do, but not very precise idea. And it's a wonderful thing to not exactly know what you want them to do.
Mm.
Because if you don't exactly know, then there are no limits.
Right.
I did not know when we hired one of these individuals who is helping 1,000 MSMEs with AI that's what she would be doing. It's through the conversations we had in the first few weeks, we figured out that that's what would interest her and that's what we would want to do. So matching the individual's aspirations with organizational goals is the secret sauce, if that's what you call it.
It is. That sounds...
And then the second part is, it's realizing that younger people would not have the lot longer patience that my generation or before my generation had. So giving them mix of work is very important.
Interesting. A mix of work.
The third thing is having some clearly visible goals. For example, at the beginning when I asked this individual, we'll have to help MSMEs, how many could we do? And she mentioned me some number, said, why not we'll do 1,000 MSMEs? Is that possible? I said, yes, it's possible. And you would do it and you would deliver it. Today, I think she's done about 860 or 900 by last week and should be done by next week.
But that number of 1,000 kind of set a benchmark, huh?
Yes, and it's big enough. Yeah. What also it does when I mentioned individual aspirations with organizational goals is every individual, the younger ones, would also want to make a large impact.
Right.
When you tap that energy that you would want to make a large impact, and this is something very, very crystal clear you can take home. And while 50% of the work we give any one of them is variable, every week there is another assignment. But about 50-60% is constant for the entire year.
Right.
So they also know that they are building on something. The power of compounding is working because they are working on the same thing.
That's brilliantly said. What you said, that young people are wanting to make an impact. They want to see a difference. They don't want to just somehow work and earn money. I see that drive. They want to be a part of, young people want to be a part of something larger than themselves. And I think you've been able to tap that. So Prashant, what would you tell young people who are working with more senior people, right? And what would you tell senior people who want to work with young people, right? What can one thing they can keep in mind to make this mix more meaningful?
To the senior people, I would say, involve the younger people in deciding their goals. It would help you for a lot longer term.
Nice.
To the younger individuals, I would say, keep some patience, because power of compounding also takes some time.
Right. Patience.
Absolutely. Some patience. And in the early days, when you haven't built the expertise out of experience, what you have to give is whole lot more energy, enthusiasm, and openness of mind to be available to do the work that's assigned to you. Do not look at any work as a small work or menial work. Rather than always worrying about what work you would fall in love with the work that you're trying to do.
Nice.
That would go a lot longer.
Nice. Brilliantly said. Huh? You compensate the experience that you don't have with the energy, commitment and wholeheartedness that you can bring to the table. Beautiful. Okay. You have worked in the UK, in USA, even in Switzerland, and also in Singapore and Hong Kong, right? So you've seen business around the world. Tell me, Prashant, what is something that you think we as Indians are naturally good at? And what is something that you think we as Indians really need to become better at?
Hey, look, we as Indians, right? Because we're still part of the developing country, we go through a lot of constraints. So we are very good at dealing with constraints and still coming out of those.
Right. The jugaduness.
We have resilience, right? We have resilience out of it. So that's a good part. Most of us are very hardworking, especially when you are immigrant, when you go to another country, right? No wonder that in UK, USA, wherever you go, the richest ones there are the Indians, right? Or far richer than at least the locals or natives there on an average. So you are hardworking and you have resilience, you have ability to deal with challenges around you is what works. What doesn't work is, I think we need to learn. We need to have some certainty when we work, right? Rather than chalta hai attitude.
Right.
This chalta hai attitude won't work when you interact with rest of the world. Rest of the world believes in certainty, yes and no. Yes and no. It doesn't work in this fashion, right?
Interesting.
So I think that's one thing we all could be little more conscious of when we are interacting with the outside world. Of course, more so, now that India is one of the top 5 global economies,
yes,
each one of us also needs to feel that when we interact, feel the confidence, feel the warmth and goodness of that, and behave and interact with outsiders, right? So that they also feel inspired with the fact that they are dealing with one of the top 5 in the world.
That is amazing. You're saying carry that confidence and carry that feeling with you. But I like what you said, while the jugaduness is there, but this chalta hai attitude needs to be changed to something else, right? So if you have to put it in your own words, in a few words, what would you say we need to change it to?
So the chalta hai attitude needs to move to something. If I say what I would do, I will do it. N. Chandra, who is now chairman of Tata Sons, when he was in TCS, when I worked there, he used to say this line, reduce your say-do ratio, right? Which means what you say and what you do should be a lot more than what you say. Rather than, whenever somebody asks us, right, we'll say, ho jayega, kar denge ji, bheja dunga ji, ho jayega ji. But at the end of it, right, if you say something, you should do it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So what you're saying is कि अगर एक बार मैंने बोल दिया तो मान लो कर लूंगा, right? That's what's the attitude that you think we should bring. Beautiful. In a previous episode I had spoken with Namita Thapar and she was saying कि in the beginning of your career and throughout मेहनत तो करनी पड़ेगी. You have to put in that hard work, right? Here's a scenario that I want to ask you. Let's say if you have 3 people who are applying for the same job, okay? One of them is an MBA from a really good institute, a well-known institute. Let's say one of them has 3-4 years of work experience and, shows that they've done some great projects. And another one is academically very brilliant, right? Now you're talking to these people. What I want to ask you, Prashant, what are 3 skills that you want to definitely see in them? You may say that I'll train you for the job. Many things you don't know, I will teach you. But these 3 skills are an absolute must that you want to see in them. What would those 3 specific tangible skills be?
Sure. So I think there is a role for each one of the 3. There is a role for somebody who is academically brilliant. There is a role for somebody who comes from the top-notch B schools.
Right.
And both are highly respected. However, there is a lot more space for the other one who comes with this 2-3 years of experience. Right. And there are many more of those are required. So what do I want from them? First, an open mind, an appetite to want to do, appetite want to learn and do. That's the first thing. Second thing, you would always want somebody who can collaborate with others, who can work with others, right? And that requires ability to deal with your own egos, right? An ability to have good interpersonal skills, or at least wanting to get better at it as you progress. That's the second thing. Third, very interestingly, right, when you work in an organization, एक घोड़े को पानी तक लिया जा सकता है, पानी तो घोड़े को पीना पड़ेगा. So the third thing is you would want that individual to have the antennas up to want to pick up on whatever good is happening and be proactive.
That sense of initiative, that hunger and drive. Brilliant. But let me add on to this question. Okay, now these are all soft and inner qualities which I think we understand in our career after 10 years. When we are in college, we understand finance, we understand marketing. Nobody wanted to do these soft things. But so if I have to ask you, specifically things like, being able to work with spreadsheets, being good with economics or marketing or sales or written communication. What are some of the 3 things that you would say that, these are basic. Ye vanilla ice cream hai. You need to have this.
So you mentioned them, right? I mean, the spreadsheet is the most basic thing, I think. Irrespective of how much technology and AI evolves, most work still happens on spreadsheets. If you don't know how to do spreadsheet, I think you would have a big red mark, at least when I'm evaluating you. The second thing is interpersonal skills or communication skills. Interestingly, right, if you want to double your salary with whatever you have, just get better at communication skills. Very
Really?
simple. Because I have observed time and again, people with good communication skill jump up their remuneration.
You want to double your salary, get good with communication.
Absolutely. Because most of us, right, have all the abilities or multiple abilities. But if you are not able to communicate them, then the other person doesn't know you have the ability. So just communicate them with confidence is the second thing. The third one I would say, if you look at, you do any work, right, it unfortunately again comes to the softer side rather than the hard skill. If you want to do it right, rather than just say it, I think it works a lot better. Whatever it is, you should have an ability to get your hands dirty and say like, I'll do it. Because in the early days, right, you don't have experience. I can't gain anything from your experience if I'm a recruiter. And if you don't even want to roll up your sleeves and do it, right, either you got to be Einstein, then you would not be here anyway interviewing with me. Or you got to roll up your sleeves and do the job.
Roll up your sleeves and hashtag karo.
You did.
नीति ठीक है लेकिन कृति ज़्यादा जरूरी है.
True.
You mentioned AI, right? And the whole world is talking about AI. AI is here, right? And it's changing jobs. I met one of your young MCCI fellows who's training entrepreneurs across the state on using AI. As with AI coming in, and Prashant, you are at the interface of education, of industry, and of government. Where do you think colleges, universities, and the education system needs to bring in some changes? What is it that is really needed for us to remain relevant?
Sure. First of all, universities need to realize that AI is something that's going to be here. Which means rather than telling students don't use AI, you'll have to develop your own ability to allow them to use AI and still evaluate them.
Right.
Okay. Because AI is like the typewriter of that era or computer of the earlier era, right? You don't tell people not to use it. I rather would tell all the students, please make sure that you use all of it that you want to use and I will enhance my ability to evaluate you even after using it. The second thing that AI can't give is what you need to do a lot more. AI can't give you interpersonal skills. Focus on those. AI can't teach you ability to deal with fear. Focus on that. AI can't teach you ability to deal with failure. Focus on that. AI can't build resilience in the students. Focus on that. AI can't give you the experiences, can give you all of this. Please make sure that apart from the theory that you give, you do give them whole lot of experience. If it was entertainment, here it is experience. Give them experience while they are studying. That's what Germans did. That's why they are good and great in manufacturing. That's why they are the biggest exporters in the world in manufacturing. You ensure that while they are studying, they have experience. Whether you call it internship, somebody could call it apprenticeship, you might call it something else, that's fine. But experience, that's what you focus while they're studying.
There's no other way to really acquire these qualities and skills that you're saying.
Absolutely. Because AI can give you everything else, all the knowledge at your fingertip. But AI would not give you ability to deal with fear, failure, resilience, collaboration, interpersonal skills. All of those you learn by being with people.
This is hard-hitting stuff, Prashant. Thank you so much for throwing light on this. Okay, just a few more questions and then a rapid-fire round. Prashant, what is the advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self? And remember, you have a daughter who's almost now getting 18.
Okay, so I don't know. I would dare to give her advice because this era is different.
That's why I said, what advice will you give to your 18-year-old self? So now, if you have to look back,
right. So I would tell myself to be. I was very confident, but I'll ask myself to be a little more confident than I was. I used to be worried, by the way, I studied in a Marathi medium school. And I used to be concerned about my communication skills, my ability to speak in English, because till I was in 10th, I had never spoken for 3 continuous minutes in English.
And look at him now.
So I used to be worried about it. So I would tell myself, do not have even an iota of that inferiority in you. That's what I'll remind myself. I'll tell myself that different people have different strengths. You have the strengths which nobody else has. I knew it kind of thing, but I'll reinforce that if I tell my 18-year-old self. I'll tell my 18-year-old self that every individual has a different background, different aspirations, right? Different parents, different family, different friends, right? I would remind myself again that, hey, look, you focus on what you would want to do in terms of getting yourself better rather than ever worried about what the next door neighbor is doing, what Sharma ji ka beta or beti is doing, or what your classmate is doing. You focus on how do you get better than what you were yesterday. I think some of those things I did, but I would reinforce them even more if I go back to being 18-year-old.
Wow, that really gives so much of strength. And I think more than youngsters of today, I would want many, many parents to listen to what Prashant has just given as advice to his own 18-year-old self. Prashant, I'm sure you've seen this also with the youngsters around. हम लोग जब कॉलेज में थे, 2 ही ऑप्शंस थे, इंजीनियर बनो या डॉक्टर बनो, बेसिकली दैट वाज इट, right? But today there is an abundance of possibilities, right? And even parents are very open, and I meet many parents who tell their kids, whatever you want, I'm there with you, just take a decision. But actually that's adding even more pressure to the children. They don't know exactly how to decide, and there are 1,000 options. So a lot of youngsters are under immense pressure today. What is the right career for me? Kya karna chahiye? What will be the right path? So actually this abundance has created more stress. What are your thoughts about this? And anything that you think can help us feel more clear?
When I was 19-year-old, right, I conducted a program in Latur. It was called Career Guide. And we had about 1,000 students attending it.
You got this organized when you were 19?
Yeah, and me with some of my engineering schoolmates. And the only career guidance we are giving them is which engineering college to choose and how to choose it. It was limited to that because that people did not know how to do all of this. So I've thought about this for long. I think when you go back and look at what it was earlier era of choosing only engineering, medicine, or even management, right? We need to realize that in that era, a certain job looked real big. But with the frequency with which things are changing, by the time you graduate and get there, there will be another industry coming up. So parents also, we all need to realize, I don't know for my own children what industry they would be joining. But there are some basic things I know. If you look at the history from Homo Deus till now, money is important. Managing money is important. It could take different shape. Coin, silver coin, gold coin, to notes, to digital coins, to whatnot it's coming. Bitcoin,
right.
Whatnot coin would come. But there will always be money and we need to manage money.
Yes.
Second, at any point in time, the humanity need to produce something. How you produce is different. Organizations could take different shape and sizes. You need to produce something. That, to borrow your word, karo. Ye jaruri hai hamesha. You can't skip it.
You have to produce something. There has to be an output.
There has to be some output. Third, anyone who does produce efficiently would be better. That was true in Egyptian era and it's true today also.
Anyone who produces efficiently is better.
Better, right? The one who ensured that the stone you are able to put stone on stone by using a wheel, right, was efficient at that era and got whatever gold and whatnot from the pharaohs. In this era, whosoever does efficiently something would get the rewards, whatnot the company HR gives you, right? Or vacation somewhere in Bali, right? You get all of that. So what does not change are these things in terms of ensuring that you are efficient at it. So irrespective of what changes are happening, money stays important. You making sure that you got to produce something, karo stays important, kruti stays important. You wanting to be always efficient stays important. You want to be better than what your past was is important. You need to always interact with people. Those who collaborate, interact with people, can produce more stays important. So I think we'll have to take out what continues to be important beyond that, the thing that I've often repeated in today's podcast is ability to deal with fear. डर तो हर किसी को लगता है किसी ना किसी चीज का. डर के आगे जीत है, नॉट नेसेसरली प्रमोटिंग एनी प्रोडक्ट. ये हम सुनते हैं, बट ये समझ जब जाते हैं तब अच्छा है. फेल्यूर हर किसी को होता है. Even Tendulkar got out on multiple zeros, but greatest batsman in the world. Failure ये पता है, but खुद को समझना कि हम फेल हो गए, but उसके बाद भी सक्सेस आता है, ये जरूरी है. ये समझना कि कुछ चीज करने के लिए 2-4 लोगों से कोलैबोरेट करने में कुछ दिक्कत आती है, but eventually it works and collaboration produces more. ये सब चीजें जब आप समझ लेते हो, तब आप जो भी करियर आएगा 3, 4, 5, 7 साल बाद, उसमें आप अच्छा कर ही लोगे. देखिए, जब मैं पढ़ रहा था तो मुझे पता नहीं था मैं यहां पे आऊंगा. पढ़ रहा था तब सोचा हुआ था कि इंजीनियरिंग करूंगा. इंजीनियरिंग के बाद इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ते वक्त पता चला कि मैनेजमेंट कुछ होता है. तब एमबीए की प्रिपरेशन की. मैनेजमेंट पढ़ते वक्त ये पता चला कि मार्केटिंग मुझे करनी है, क्योंकि मैं ठीक ठाक बात कर लेता हूं, तो लोगों ने कहा तो मार्केटिंग करना चाहिए. मार्केटिंग कर लेते हैं. अब वो करते वक्त पता चला अर्थक्वेक हो गया तो वॉलंटियरिंग करते हैं. ये करते वक्त पता चला गवर्नमेंट में काम किया इसलिए ई गवर्नेंस पे करते हैं. उससे पता चला कि मैं आईटी में काम कर रहा हूं. उससे पता चला कि मुझे किसी फॉरेन देश में जाना है. ये करते करते वापस आ गए तो मुझे खुद का कुछ करना है. तो एक व्यक्ति को, अगर आप 18 ईयर ओल्ड है और आपको पता नहीं आप एग्जैक्टली क्या करने वाले हो, तो खुश रहिए. खुश इसलिए रहिए कि बहुत कुछ पॉसिबिलिटीज है जो ना तो मुझे पता थी और कई लोगों को पता नहीं होती. पर अगर आप ऐसे एकाध व्यक्ति हो, 1 in 100,000, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 1,000, जिसे एग्जैक्टली पता है, उसमें कुछ गलत नहीं है, वो भी सही है. बट मोस्ट पीपल डू नॉट नो एग्जैक्टली व्हाट दे वांट टू डू, एंड इट्स एब्सोल्युटली ओके. Focus on the other things that we mentioned in terms of building that competence.
Amazing. That I think will give so much of relief, confidence and clarity to so many young people and their parents. What you're saying is you don't need to have a master plan of the next 50 years. Things will unfold, right? You just have to keep at it and keep these basic qualities. Beautiful. Thank you, Prashant, for taking us through this journey, throwing light on, things like entrepreneurial mindset, taking initiative, these qualities of collaborating. नीति ठीक है, लेकिन कृति होना जरूरी है. I think this has really kind of opened up all our minds towards, how to really create our career. Before we get into the rapid fire round, is there any podcast that you follow or any influencer who you follow who you think and you would like to recommend to our viewers as something that will really be inspiring and motivational?
So I think I follow a couple of podcasts. There's one by this gentleman. What's his name? I think Ali. He does a podcast on productivity.
Okay.
The link is here on the screen. You could follow that, and it's a wonderful podcast on productivity. I would also advise you to try check out a podcast that I have on how is business, Udyog Dhanda Kasa Ka Hai, where I've interviewed 52 different companies. But it's in Marathi. Those who follow Marathi can do that. We'll also try to get an English and Hindi version of that so that everybody could look at it. Lovely. So I think those are the couple of those that I'll suggest. But podcasts are a wonderful, source of information for everyone.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Okay. Are we ready for the rapid fire round? Okay. So the rapid fire round, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. And each question you have to give an answer of the 18-year-old Prashant and of today's Prashant.
Oh man. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So what would the 18-year-old Prashant answer and what is Prashant's answer today for each of the questions? Right? Shall we begin? So the first question is, what is your idea of fun? What would 18-year-old Prashant say and what is Prashant's idea of fun today?
18-year-old thought that if I could travel to 30 different countries before I turn 30, that's fun. What Prashant thinks today is if I could spend a lot of time with my family, that's fun. If I could spend time with Aditya, Hitendra and some of my friends over a drink, that's good fun.
Woohoo! Okay, what's your idea of a perfect career? 18-year-old and today.
When I was 18-year-old, I knew that I wanted to do something that will make my parents proud.
Mm-hmm.
That was the that continues to be. But when I was 18-year-old, the perfect career was somebody who gets a bungalow, gets a car and does travel to those countries. That's the kind of job that I wanted. today, something where I can make maximum possible impact,
Right.
even if the money I get is a little lesser than what I would have got otherwise. I would want to be known for the impact I make to myself.
Wonderful.
Whether others know or not doesn't matter, but I would want to tell myself every week, every month that this is the impact I could contribute to along with my colleagues.
Wonderful. And I see you doing that. Okay. Question number 4. What's your definition of cool? 18-year-old Prashant and today.
And as 18-year-old, I think that was the fashion that time of baggies and sneakers and all of that. That looked cool. Appearances was what I defined coolness with.
Right.
Today, being comfortable under your own skin, knowing that you are you and it's all right if somebody is what they are, knowing well that किसी की लाइन अगर इतनी है तो मुझे उसे छोटा नहीं करना है, मुझे थोड़ी सी बड़ी लाइन खींचनी है. I think that's being cool. Being
Nice.
comfortable under your own skin is cool for me.
Lovely. Lovely. Question number 4. How do you handle critical feedback? 18-year-old and today.
18-year-old, I used to be worried a lot, almost scared. It would look like certainly I have made a mistake if somebody is saying it.
Yeah. Something is wrong with me.
Something is wrong with me, definitely. And I don't know how to deal with it. Right? Today, I know that I have heard you what you're saying. I could take some time to think about it. Right? And it so happens that 3 out of 10 times, what somebody is telling me is very true and I need to act upon it. But there is 6-7 times out of 10 times, there might be another motivation or incentive for other person to have given me the feedback, and that's fine as well. Not that I'm upset or angry about it. Right? So now I can take it, absorb it, rather than immediately responding to it.
Wow. Wonderful. And that brings me to my final rapid fire question. Success or happiness? 18-year-old Prashant and today. What comes first?
I think 18-year-old was success, now happiness.
As simple as that. I think it's been a wonderful conversation. We have these chats every now and then, but being able to do this podcast episode with you, Prashant, was an absolute pleasure. And I really think it's a gift you have kind of thrown, in a very simple but profound way, I think made clear, some of those things that all of us, when we were 18, 19, could not see clearly. But today, we have this platform of podcast where, this exposure is available to everybody. I think it's now time for you to take off the jacket of yours.
We're very dear friends, and it was Aditya who made sure that, I had to wear that jacket thingy. And Aditya would look a lot cooler by making sure that he rolls up his sleeves. Next time I invite him on my podcast, I'll try to reverse it.
Yeah, it's got to be the working man with rolled up sleeves and the big boss, right? That has to show. No, but he's a guy from whom I have learned a lot and many wonderful experiences. And I think I've learned from you, Prashant, what I call as light touch leadership, Many times tend to be very high touch and very high pressure and very over involved. But मेरे से ये देखा है कि यार अगर clarity हो तो you don't really need to put pressure, just that little bit of touch, and that's worked. I mean, I've seen that working so many times. So
thank you
again.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much.